What is up, people? It is me, Monster58, and welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be doing a much different video than anything I've ever put on this channel, and today we are going to be doing a first impressions on a very recently released game. I'm recording this right now as of August 28th, 2023, 3 days after the fated Armored Core 6, The Fires of Rubicon, has released. Technically, if you were on Steam like me, you would have picked this game up technically you could have played it Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard and I believe 10 a.m. UTC, I think it was. But when it comes to this game, I ended up picking up this game on Thursday and played it basically from minute one. I've been playing it a lot for the past, I believe in the past few days I've put like about 20 some hours into it, maybe a little less than 20 hours. Before we get into everything, if you don't want spoilers for this game at all, besides the trailers that we've seen and stuff like that, you can skip right to the end to hear my concluding thoughts on the game as a first impressions. I will leave a timestamp both in the description. I'll try maybe to leave one in, as well as a pinned comment, and I will flash one on screen right now. So, next thing, I'm also only going to be showing my gameplay from Chapter 1. When it comes to this game, I believe that there are 4 chapters to this game, and I have hit Chapter 3 as of, like, last night, and so I'm going to only show gameplay from Chapter 1 and my first impressions, mainly dealing with my experiences going into Chapter 1 and throughout Chapter 1. Other things I'd like to preface before we get into this. I've never played an Armored Core game, let alone I've never heard of the series up until this game's trailers and release and, the build up to it. And I've never ever played a FromSoftware game, so like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. But I have seen a lot of gameplay from Dark Souls and Elden Ring. When Elden Ring came out, a bunch of my buddies picked it up, and I was watching them play it. Never personally was interested in Elden Ring or Dark Souls, but I've watched my friends and I've watched plenty of videos on both games. So I have a familiarity with it, just obviously not in the gameplay sense of things, right? Like actually playing the game, but I do know some decent things about it just from watching my friends play it. In addition to that, why did I pick this game up? Well, the thing is, I love giant robots. As you guys know, I do Transformers reviews. I love Transformers. I also love Gundam. I have plenty of Gundam model kits. I got a ton of them under my desk right now. And for example, the reason I bring this up is because if you guys are not familiar, there's a new Gundam series called Gundam The Witch from Mercury. This is their most recently released series, and when it comes to one of the Gundams in the show called the Gundam Faract, it was designed by Wataru Inada, I believe his name is. I'll flash something on screen if I got that wrong. But I believe this man, if you guys are Armored Core fans, you will probably know that name, you're diehard fans, or even if you just do a little bit of research, when it comes to this man, he ended up also designing Armored Core stuff. So it coincides, and obviously both Armored Core and Gundam fall under the Bandai moniker, and when it also comes to Armored Core and Gundam, Armored Cores and Gundams are not that much different from one another. They're basically the same thing if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty. So, at the end of the day, I'm going into this blind, and I understand that this is a long-running game series since the PS2. Just personally, I've never heard of it, and I apologize to all you Armored Core fans out there. I just never heard of it, even though I love mechs. I love giant robots, right? And so, with that all out of the way, I know that was a long-winded intro, but I needed to preface this with a lot of stuff so that you guys can understand my perspective as a player going into this completely blind. Let's get into my first impression. So, we'll start off with the good and end with the bad, because the good leads into the bad. I feel that I can't explain the bad things without talking about the good things. Well, I guess I could, but I'd rather do good than bad. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, first off, the first thing we're going to talk about are the good things, and the first good thing we're going to talk about is the story. When it comes to the story as of Chapter 1, by the way, that is one thing I also wanted to talk about. I've only played through Chapter 1, and I'm only going to... Actually, no, I haven't only played. I've played through up until the beginning of Chapter 3, but I will only be showing gameplay until Chapter 1, through Chapter 1, so that you guys can understand where I'm coming from. And just sort of a little bit of a spoiler, please skip this, next 15 seconds if you want to. Everything that was shown in the trailers, Chapter 1 is involved in a lot of those things that they showed in the trailers. Not everything, but pretty much a lot of the stuff that they showed was mainly Chapter 1. Even though there was a few things here and that they also showed that weren't Chapter 1. But that's besides the point. As of through chapter 1, I really like the story. It's simple and it's straightforward and it's to the point right now, but it works. You know, the characters are compelling. They each have their own distinct personalities. Despite not being able to see any human faces, the voice acting is done really well. I've heard a little bit of it in Japanese. That sounds really good too, from what I saw. But even though you can't see any human faces, the personalities are pretty distinct, and you can definitely tell who's talking when. It's going to take me some time to really learn the names more, even now that I've played through up until chapter 3, but still, it's really, really good.
Looks like you passed the authentication. Raven, that's who you are now, here on Rubicon. I've picked up some work for you already. Take a look, 621. Got a job for you, 621. This is an open call from the Balaam Group, one of the corporate forces occupying Rubicon.
Attention, all independent mercenaries! This request comes from our affiliate, Dafeng. The Rubicon Liberation Front has deployed Baus artillery throughout the contaminated city. The city itself has no strategic value, but we cannot allow them to hinder expansion of the Coral Survey. Show us your ambition. Destroy the Liberation Front's artillery. Bonus pay will be awarded for destroying their MTs. We want the enemy weakened. Consider it an opportunity to prove yourself. Impress us, mercenaries!
I can't give my full opinion on the story since I haven't beat the game yet, and I also don't want to spoil the game for other people, you know, talking about the story in depth. That would be like a full review, which I'm not going to do here on this channel. Next thing, moving on from the story, graphics. They look great, and I'm not saying that they're the best graphics I've ever seen, but for what we have with this game, it's brilliant. And when it comes to this game, the scale feels massive. That's one point I wanted to hit on with the graphics. It feels like an open world, but it also doesn't and it isn't. There are certainly areas where there are barriers, right? And there are clear walls that you can't go past. But because the maps feel so big in terms of the scale of, like, even though you're a mech the size of a transformer, you know, maybe bigger than that, the scale feels huge. You know, big, desolate landscapes from snowy areas to some grassy areas to some deserts and stuff like that. It's really freaking cool. I lose track of my scale because there's a few times where helicopters would be shooting at me and I'd be like, what are those? Those look like drones. And then I realize, oh, I'm in a giant mech. Human-sized helicopters realistically wouldn't be that much big. That wouldn't be very big considering my size. And that means that the stuff you fight is massive if you really think about it. It's absolutely huge. Like, you know, multiple building-sized enemies that you're fighting in this game. So the scale is amazing. In addition, it is bullet hell, but you're able to sort of still understand what's happening. And there are moments where you won't be able to, especially if you're first timing a boss or first timing a mission. It'll take a few tries, but I'll talk more about that with the gameplay. But you're still going to be able to understand what's happening. Last thing, performance. Performance has been pretty flawless. I literally just had one crash, and that's because I was spam restarting because I was restarting a boss, right? And so I think the game was trying to load itself and then it just crashed once, but it wasn't even like, it didn't even give me a crash report. It was just hard crash and that was it, and then relaunch the game. But other than that, flawless. It only pooped itself like once when I was watching a live stream. I was watching a live stream the other night of some wrestling stuff. If you want to hear about my opinions on those stuff, follow me in the socials link in the description below. That's besides the point. But that was the only time it sort of pooped itself. Frame drops, loading issues, stuff like that. But as soon as I closed the stream, it was fine. I usually can watch YouTube videos while playing the game, even though I mainly focus on the actual game. Overall, still really good on performance. Pretty flawless. It's really hard to say that a game is basically flawless performance-wise on launch. And in addition, no bugs, no glitches so far. Finally, last thing about the good things about this game, gameplay. Let's talk about the gameplay, and part of it will be customizing the Armored Core, but that's an entirely different section. I know it falls under gameplay, but I'm going to put it in some section because there's a good amount to say about that as well. Gameplay. It's FromSoftware style, definitely. You have your stagger bar. From what I understand, you know, you have your stagger bar. Bosses have patterns. Enemies have patterns. They have better ways that you can defeat them. Certain weapons and attacks from certain directions will be much better on certain enemies depending on what they are, and same thing goes for bosses, and the gameplay thus feels rewarding. Once you figured out, like, this enemy is best at taking it from behind, this enemy is best at hitting it from below, this enemy is best if you melee it, it shows, like, a lot of reward. It feels really rewarding once you finally are able to, like one tap a lot of stuff, because you realistically can. It's just you have to figure it out. And so me figuring that out, I'll show you a gameplay compilation of a good chunk of my deaths throughout Chapter 1. So enjoy my deaths, because there's a lot of them. I'm not going to show all of them, but enjoy them. Ah. Damn. Oh, damn it.
30%.
Dude, damn. Oh my god, dude. No, dude.
For our decoy.
Here. Got this. No, we don't got this. 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 I need to heal. I need to. Why didn't it go off? Yeah, that's fine. That's so sad. In addition, there's a lot of replayability. So when you beat a mission in this game, what's really cool is that you have the ability to replay the same mission again immediately after for a grade, up until the S rank is the highest grade you can get for any given mission, right? And it depends on the amount of ammo you use, the amount of repair kits that you use, the damage that you take, I believe the amount of time has an influence, but not as much as the others. But yeah, really, really cool. And also, when it comes to this gameplay, keep in mind it's omnidirectional. With Elden Ring and Dark Souls, from what I've understood, it's mainly you're grounded, right? You're mainly running around on the ground and stuff like that, you know, waiting for stuff to come from you, you know, right in front of you, maybe a bit above you. But this game is, since you're in the mech that can fly, everywhere. And you can dash and all this stuff. It's crazy. So even though it is crazy, it's really well done, and it's a lot of fun, and it rewards skillful gameplay. Finally, customizing your AC when it comes to the gameplay. This is also something I have to say a lot about. Very in-depth. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there's an infinite number of paint colors. You have pre-made or your own decals. There's a lot of patterns. You can import your own decals that you make on, like, Photoshop or something. Import that as save it as a JPEG and then import it. It's really freaking cool. And the only limit at this point, in my opinion, is your imagination, and that also translates to the many different parts, whether that's weapons, body parts, and others that are similar, that involve the assembly of your Armored Core, your AC. It leads to any number of playstyles, whether you want to have tank legs and you want to drive and you want to have heavy artillery and shoot things, or whether you want to be a quick and agile AC and get in and out of battles without taking that much damage, but as soon as you get hit, you're going to be really frail, stuff like that. And there's something for everyone, and it's really, really freaking cool. The other part I love about this is swapping parts mid-mission. So say you're fighting a boss, and maybe you determine that it's not necessarily just your skill that's screwing you over. Part of this game is a lot of trial and error, understanding the different damage types, the different ranges that your weapons are effective at. One of the videos I'll link in the description and talk about, Force Gaming talked about how, like, one of the things that is really cool is, like, when you figure out, like, oh, do I need more consistent DPS? Do I want to burst this guy? Does this boss have an opening or a weakness that allows me to exploit, like bursting him down, or trying your best to consistently DPS them so that the stagger bar doesn't get too low, stuff like that. It's really freaking cool. And so when it comes to swapping your parts, if you go to the fail mission select screen, it allows you to either load other AC loadouts that you've gotten, or it allows you to swap out parts, maybe small adjustments. And I'm not always finding myself swapping a ton of parts and completely revolutionizing my build every mission, but a few adjustments here and there, as Force Gaming said, can make a huge difference in the way that you're actually approaching a boss fight and actually beating it, right? It's really, really cool. Excuse me, one thing I'd also like to add is that when it comes to making your AC, you can save each of your builds as loadouts. So say, like for me example, the couple things that I ended up doing is I built like a tanky boy AC with the tank legs, and then I also built one that's sort of good at everything, sort of an all-rounder, jack of all trades. I saved those as each individual loadouts, meaning whenever I want to swap or use them, I can just load the AC data and immediately just get the build that I want if one isn't working or something like that. So it's really, really efficient that it allows you to do that. I definitely recommend you do that. And it also saves you your paint colors. So say the Tanky Boy is a different paint color than the all-rounder Jack of all trades one. Well, then you can save that. And it's really, really cool that it allows you to do that so that it saves you time from having to go back and swap all the parts and all the paint. Awesome stuff, Armored Core, Bandai, FromSoftware. Really good stuff. So overall, when it comes to all these good things, there's nothing more to say about the good things about this game that I've gotten from my first chapter of this game. Now there are some little irks. First off, it can be overwhelming. This is not a relaxing game. It will only ever be a quote unquote chill game when you've actually mastered everything. So you've mastered the boss fights, you've mastered the gameplay, you've mastered your build, you've mastered the weapons. That will be the only time it'll be chill to the point where it's muscle memory in your hands, right? And that requires a lot of time. Now, there are people out there, obviously. There's people who've played, a bunch of you guys probably played Armored Core already, or there's a bunch of you who are just good at games. So that percentage of people just exists. But for a vast majority of people, especially because this game is also bringing in, from what I understand, bringing in a lot of new players to the series as a whole, don't expect a chill game. You have to keep moving. There's a lot always happening on screen for the most part. You won't be kicking up your feet to relax with a beer type of game. Now, another thing is it can feel rather difficult. Don't get me wrong. I think that the tutorial boss of this game is a bit tough. And it took me well over like 15 or 20 tries to actually beat it. But that's because for me, when it comes to games like this, I need to play it over and over again to really understand, like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. But my counterpoint to that, too, for people saying that, is it's a From Software trademark. If you're going into a From Software game, I don't care what the devs say. I'm going to be honest with you when it comes to, like, I believe that some people quoted the devs as saying that this is not going to be like a Dark Souls game. What I'm going to say is if you're going into a From Software game not expecting to press start and then restart on a boss over and over again, then you picked the wrong game. That's literally what you need to expect going into a From Software game, is the fact that you will be going into a boss fight, you won't necessarily get it on the first time, and you'll have to restart over and over and over again until you actually beat it, unless you're just, again, a god at games. And again, there's people out there that are like that. But please expect that going into this game. Real quick, I also want to clarify what I meant by I don't care what the devs say. I do obviously care what the devs say, but what I'm saying is this, is if you're going into this game, even if they say that don't expect it to be like a Souls game, it's still made by the same company, so you can expect some of the mechanics to carry over. And so the traditional idea of being able to fight a boss on your first try is only reserved really for like that 1% of player base who is really, really good at the game and is just good at games in general. But like I said, for a vast majority of people, you have to expect, especially if you're not used to playing a game like this, exactly like me. I'm awful at this game, but I'm learning. You have to expect that you'll be going into a boss fight and repeating it over and over and over and over again. That's just how it works. That's how these games work. And I think that that is part of this game's charm, especially with the way that you can change your ACs. So, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that so I don't get people telling me that, oh, you just insulted the devs. No, these devs are amazing. They actually made a working game for once, unlike a lot of others. So, yep, just wanted to clarify that. Back to the actual video. Finally, the last thing that I don't like about this game is the intermission. So you'll basically have, like, for each chapter, for at least for chapter 1, from what I have, is you'll have, like, a boss at the beginning, you have your tutorial boss, you'll then have a few missions, then a boss, and a few missions, then the final boss of chapter 1. Those intermissions in between are kind of short. I wish they were more robust. There's a few of them that are cool, but I just wish they were longer. They don't have too much made into them. Like there's not. It's like there's one mission. If you don't want to get spoiled, skip this part. Like maybe a minute away. But there's this mission where you have to fight an enemy AC one-on-one, and that's literally it. You literally spawn in, fly in, fight the AC, and you're done. Even if you're not good at the game, it should take you no more than 5 minutes. And if you get really good at the game, it should take you not even more than 30 seconds, 40 seconds, maybe a minute long. And so I use it to farm the credits in the game. And so it's really really cool. And I guess that's one thing I did forget to mention. I apologize for this. When you're building your AC, it's really freaking cool. When you buy parts, they sell for exactly the same amount of money as you buy them at. So you can just reshuffle your builds until you find a combination that works for you. That's also really cool. But other than that, I honestly think the bad things are minor nitpicks in the sea of greatness. It's just an incredible game all around, and I'm loving it so far. Even I would say the same thing even if I hadn't played through just Chapter 1 up until the recording of this video. So, concluding thoughts, I definitely recommend it, but you have to be unaware of what you're getting into. Again, this is From Software. This is not going to be a chill game. This is not going to be a game where you can just kick back and relax, especially if you're like me, who's never heard of Armored Core and never played a From Software game. Just understand that. One last interjection before we end off the video and my other final thoughts about my first impressions about Armored Core. The reason I keep repeating the phrase "know what you're getting into" is because of the release of Elden Ring, actually. When the Elden Ring released, a lot of people on social media, I got really annoyed because people were complaining about the difficulty of the game. But the thing is to my knowledge, that's a From Software trademark. That's their thing. That's their shtick. And so to me, it shows like a lack of consumer research, lack of consumer due diligence. And in my opinion, whenever you're buying any product, whether that's a video game, a piece of food, a drink, some types of clothing, a car, a house, do your due diligence, do your research. For example, one analogy I love to bring up, that I'd like to bring up is this. If you're buying a Lamborghini Aventador and thinking it's going to be practical, buying it, then complaining about the practicality, well, then you don't know what you're getting into. It's like buying a running shoe with the idea that you could make it work for ballet. It doesn't make any sense. And that's the same thing with Armored Core. When it comes to Armored Core, it's a From Software game. So although the devs mentioned that it's not going to be super Souls-like, you still have to expect some of the From Software to come through there, and it definitely has, right? With the boss fights, understanding that you might have to restart it over and over again to understand the mechanics, approach it differently. That's why they give you the option to change your AC assembly in between missions, right? And so when it comes to buying this game, I'd recommend you do your due diligence. Like, for example, if you are a person who plays Animal Crossing all the time and expect a chill experience with your gaming, that's nothing to make fun of. You enjoy that. That's you. And Animal Crossing is a fantastic series, but Animal Crossing is an Armored Core. And I'm not saying that you couldn't get into Armored Core, but what I'm saying is if you buy the game not expecting it to be difficult, then complaining about the difficulty, well, then you just didn't do any research. You didn't do any due diligence. And so in my opinion, when it comes to recommending this game, please understand that you should be doing some research, looking up gameplay, looking up reviews, looking up people talking about it so that you get an idea of whether this product is worth your money. So at the end of the day, that's all I really got to say, and I hope you guys maybe think the same. If you disagree, you can tell me about it in the comments. Other thoughts you have, I'd love to hear them. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the idea of people complaining about this game's difficulty, because I've been seeing people complain about the first tutorial boss. So, yeah, I thought I'd throw this in. Back to the video. I honestly also would recommend it if you are not into From Software style games and you like giant robots. This could honestly be a really fun game. You just have to understand the frustration that you might have with some of the mechanics of the game, when it comes to boss fights and stuff like that. But if you're willing to try it out, I honestly recommend you even try it out if you're not into From Software stuff. A couple of videos, by the way, that I watched that were pretty good, and they also talked about things that I pointed out in this video. Rock Paper Shotgun, he released an awesome video on some beginner tips, so if you're having trouble, take a look at his video. He's got some really good tips in there that I followed, really cool stuff. And finally, Force Gaming also released a general, quick review of the game as a whole. So, other than that, guys, I'll link those in the description, and that's about it. Again, I love this game so far, and I cannot wait to finish it and play through it 1,000 more times, because this is everything I've been waiting for in a mech game, and yeah, it's really freaking awesome. So, Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please like, comment, rate, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, follow me on the socials linked in the description below. And with that, guys, I will catch you all in the next video, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace out.
High ambitions and the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft. You can change lives.